The night of the company's annual dinner, after drinking too much, I spent the night with Ethan. The next day, I immediately submitted my resignation. To my surprise, Ethan looked hurt and asked, "What is this supposed to mean?" I stammered, unsure how to explain myself. "I let you take charge, and you're still not satisfied?" After a year of relentless hard work as a corporate drone, I held my substantial year-end bonus, joyfully attending the company's annual dinner. As the head of the secretarial department, the constant toasts and compliments from the junior secretaries made me feel lightheaded. Just as I was getting hazy, I saw Ethan approaching me with a bottle of six-figure priced red wine. "Sophia, you've worked hard this year. I hope we can continue to cooperate well next year." I wanted to refuse, but seeing Ethan's drop-dead gorgeous face, I couldn't help but lick my lips. Ethan and I raised our glasses, and the crowd gathered around, upon seeing Ethan, scattered quickly like mice. Drink after drink, in awkward silence. Ethan didn't speak, and I didn't know what to say either. As a determined corporate drone, one must be good at seizing every opportunity. With a slight buzz, a light bulb went off in my head. "Boss, I'd like to propose a toast to you. I've learned so much following you this year. Come on, I'll drink this first." With that, I boldly downed it in one go. The rich aroma of the wine flowed down my throat into my stomach. Watching my bold move, Ethan looked startled, completely dumbfounded. Seeing his expression, I quickly urged, "Don't be shy. Come on, Ethan, keep drinking." And so, we drank glass after glass. My brain was already getting fuzzy. My thoughts spilled out, haughty, he. I ran my hand over the man's firm arm, my eyes glazed over as I giggled foolishly. Seemingly surprised by my actions, Ethan's voice was a little flustered. "Sophia, you've had too much to drink. Let go." I ignored him, becoming even bolder. He, haughty. "Don't dream of escaping now that you're in my hands. Let me feel your washboard abs." I stumbled and lunged forward, going straight for the hem of Ethan's shirt. Through my hazy vision, I could see Ethan's reddened earlobes. Just as I was about to continue my assault, I heard a husky voice next to my ear. "Heh, Sophia, I truly underestimated you." It sounded like someone was calling my name. I looked up, my eyes filled with confusion, searching around. Ethan put his hand on my shoulder, steadying my swaying steps, and whispered in my ear, "Sophia, do you like touching abs?" Hey, hearing that, I wasn't sleepy anymore. I nodded enthusiastically. A mysteriously seductive voice, like Satan's, spoke again. Then, "Would you like to try kissing?" Upon hearing this, I started nodding vigorously. Yes. Can I?" A slight smile played on his lips, "Of course, but will you take responsibility after you kiss me?" I thought, is there really such a good thing? I couldn't help but grin foolishly. Absolutely. After saying that, I stared at his rosy lips as they parted and closed. All ambient sounds were blocked out, and internally, I was in a fierce battle. Ultimately, I couldn't resist. While he was completely unprepared. Smooch, the lively crowd around us seemed to hit pause, every sound frozen in place. After a moment of stunned silence, Ethan helped me up and swiftly led me out of the venue. Money, come to me, from everywhere, abundantly, oh, endlessly. My 7 o'clock alarm, for a working stiff, rang on time as usual. I groggily opened my eyes, a mixing rod seemed to be stirring in my head, and a moment of blankness washed over me. My heavy eyelids felt incredibly dry, as if I had been crying for a day and a night. I reached out from under the covers, searching everywhere for my phone. Just as I was flailing my arms like a frog, I suddenly touched a warm body. I froze instantly. Countless conjectures flashed through my mind. Mentally prepared, I turned my head to look. Ethan's stunningly handsome face was just a hand's width from mine. Apparently disturbed from a good dream by the alarm, he frowned, rolled over, wrapped an arm around my waist, and buried his head in the crook of my neck. "Baby, it's so noisy." At that moment, I felt like I had swallowed 1,000 flies. Not hearing my response, Ethan opened his eyes and looked at me. He gave me an incredibly passionate French kiss. But I didn't dare react in the slightest. Can anyone relate to this? "Good girl, were you very tired yesterday? You don't have to go to the company today, get some good rest." I slowly sat up, watching him get out of bed, dress, and get ready with practiced ease. Then I spoke. "All right, Ethan." I sat there dumbfounded, frantically pulling at my hair, trying hard to recall what had happened last night. My memories were fragmented, but I clearly remembered unbuttoning Ethan's shirt at the annual dinner to feel his abs, and then seizing the opportunity to kiss him. I really deserved to die. Now I truly wanted to punch myself a few times. I was absolutely audacious. I had worked at Miller Company for 6 years, and for the sake of money, I had served Ethan hand and foot, like a loyal attendant, for all those 6 years. If he said he was hot, I fanned him; if he said he was cold, I brought him warmth. Even when he was dumped by his girlfriend, I was there to drink and go crazy with him. Thinking of this, I slapped myself on the head. Why couldn't I control myself? Great. I had just been promoted to Ethan's senior assistant this year, and I hadn't even had a chance to enjoy the feeling of getting rich with $1 million salary. I'd probably be jobless tomorrow. In my mind, I already saw Ethan dismissing me, asserting his authority, and my miserable fate of desperately searching for jobs everywhere. I admit, last night was indeed an impulsive mistake on my part. With that thought, I immediately went into the bathroom to freshen up and left for home. I even left a note in the room: something came up at home, had to leave. I rushed back to my rented apartment. As I closed the door, a woman's voice came from inside. Sophia, where were you last night? Why didn't you come home? With that, I saw my best friend, Sue, standing at the bedroom door, hands on her hips and wearing a face mask. Seeing her aggressive stance, I swallowed, stammering, why yesterday, the secretarial team kept toasting, so I drank just a little too much. Oh no. I actually forgot Sue was temporarily staying at my place. She eyed me suspiciously, circling me several times. I tried to avoid her gaze, but her eyes suddenly lit up, and she leaned in as if she'd caught me red-handed. Tell me, who gave you that hickey? Sue looked exasperated. I knew you weren't being honest. Spill it. I froze instantly, clapped a hand to the side of my neck, pushed her away, and rushed into the bedroom. Don't talk nonsense. I'm exhausted, I need to rest. Just as I got back to the bedroom, my phone suddenly rang. My startled heart suddenly leaped. Hello? A sharp, explosive sound came from the other end of the line. You've got some nerve, playing me and then running off? Ethan's usually calm voice was tinged with irritation. I felt a wave of embarrassment, unsure how to respond. I remembered when I first joined Miller Company, I was just a fresh graduate, completely green. Coming from an ordinary family, I didn't want to go back to my hometown for the sake of my ambitions. I just wanted to make a name for myself in Rockhaven. But with an average education and experience, several of my resumes had gone nowhere. Just as I decided to buy a ticket home, I unexpectedly received an offer from Miller Company. Seeing the email, I was ecstatic, because Miller Company was a dream company for all job seekers. It was a large, publicly traded company with substantial capital. At that time, Ethan had only just taken over Miller Company for a year. As the chairman's only son, the heir apparent took over the company, and everything was a matter of course. However, there were many old-timers in the company back then, who, relying on their seniority, tried to control him. So, as a complete newcomer, I was promoted by Ethan. His decisive methods didn't disappoint. He purged the company of its internal corruption. I also became a veteran in the department. Recalling's past tactics, I couldn't help but shiver. I must, immediately, right now, resign. I quickly opened my computer and typed out a heartfelt resignation letter. The next morning, I slowly made my way to the company, clutching my resignation letter. Perhaps because I had made up my mind, my mood on the way to work today was unusually relaxed, devoid of the usual urgency. For these past 6 years, Ethan's call could summon me away, whether it was during work hours or not. I had perfectly exemplified what it meant to be a diligent corporate drone. Now, this was great. After resigning, I could finally relax for a while. As soon as I walked into the building, Lucy, the sweet-faced receptionist, greeted me with a smile. Sophia, good morning. I was wearing an auntie-like smile, about to return the greeting. Then I saw Kevin from the secretarial department standing in the lobby, looking at me anxiously. What took you so long, Sophia? Ethan told me to wait for you here and to tell you to go to his office immediately. Hearing that, my face immediately fell. Oh. Kevin nodded as if relieved. Hurry up, Ethan doesn't seem to be in a good mood. I spent a good while mentally preparing myself outside the office before knocking. Knock, knock. Come in. His voice was so cold it sounded like ice shards dropping, enough to freeze someone. From the moment I heard his voice, my little heart wouldn't stop trembling. Yet, I maintained a calm expression. Thinking of how those managers used to get harshly reprimanded when submitting their reports, I swallowed. Ethan sat in his hands clasped, resting them against his lips. The corners of his mouth were slightly upturned. He looked like he was in a decent mood. Sophia, regarding what happened last night, you owe me an explanation. Just as his voice faded, the resignation letter in my hand landed squarely on the desk in front of him. He lowered his head to look, staring at the 3 large black characters resignation letter on the white envelope. Both of us were uncharacteristically silent. I watched his face fall visibly, then quickly switch to a look of disbelief. He scrutinized me with a frown, then spoke. "What is this supposed to mean?" I stared at his displeased face, my mind full of prepared responses, but when faced with him, I stammered, unable to speak. "Sophia, you really have some nerve. Yesterday, I let you take charge, and you're still not satisfied?" He glared at me with an accusing look, his usually indifferent eyes filled with emotions, as if countless grievances were hidden within them. I had a moment of weakness, but thinking of the potential consequences, I hardened my heart. I don't care, I have to leave anyway." Ethan stared intently at me, perhaps sensing the resolve in my words, and his gaze became more aggressive. His gaze made me feel guilty, and I unconsciously shifted my eyes. Just as I was on edge, he asked, word for word, "You clearly said you'd take responsibility yesterday. Ethan, please, just let me go. We're both adults, I'll just take the loss, can't we just forget about it?" My voice was full of pleading. I had no choice, I was truly scared. Having been Ethan's secretary for 6 years, no one understood him better than I did. While many were fooled by his perpetually gentle smile, the methods of this cunning manipulator truly shouldn't be underestimated. I certainly didn't want to end up like those he had dealt with before. Knock, knock, knock. Before he could speak, Daniel's voice from the secretarial office came from outside the door. "Then, Mr. David from Xingyuan has arrived and is waiting for you in the conference room." The silence in the office was broken, and Ethan seemed to relax. A gentle smile reappeared on his face. He stood up and left, saying as he passed me, "Even if you leave, you must finish out this month. Don't forget the handover, and you'll be responsible for hiring your replacement." Back at my desk, looking at the mountain of pending files, I felt a headache coming on. It was already close to the end of the year, making hiring even more difficult. Not to mention Ethan's demanding and fastidious requirements. Thinking this, the speed at which I processed files also quickened. As soon as 5 o'clock hit, I was getting ready to pack up and leave. The office door opened, and Ethan tapped on my desk, "Come with me." Hearing his words, I groaned internally. The soreness in my body hadn't subsided, and I had been forcing myself through work all day. I even wanted to just black out and faint. But in reality, I could only meekly pack my things and follow Ethan with small steps. After parking, I looked at the familiar villa, feeling confused. "Ethan, are we still dealing with Mrs. Eleanor today?" The last time I was at this villa, I remembered, was because Mrs. Eleanor pressured Ethan into blind dates. Ethan, utterly annoyed, called me over. He put on quite a show in front of Mrs. Eleanor. To this day, I still remember Mrs. Eleanor's scornful gaze and the harsh words she uttered as she left. "Ethan, which of the girls I've found for you aren't noble young ladies? This kind of woman, who's only after money, you can just play with her for a bit." From that day on, I withdrew all my feelings, burying that affection deep in my heart, not daring to show even a hint of it. Ethan looked at me, his gaze deep. Let's go inside first." Inside the villa, I looked around. It was as luxurious as ever. A corporate drone like me probably couldn't afford it even if I worked my whole life. I sat on the sofa, completely baffled. I had thought Ethan called me here to be a shield, but after waiting so long, there wasn't a soul in the villa. My whole body ached uncomfortably, and I couldn't help but lean back on the sofa, trying to relax. I drifted off to sleep, feeling hazy. Before fully succumbing to darkness, I felt a warmth on my lips and a lover's whispered murmur. Opening my eyes again, I felt an eagle-like gaze fixed on me from beside me. My first instinct was to wipe my mouth. Mainly, I was genuinely afraid my drool would get on Ethan's Italian leather sofa. I still trembled remembering the amount on the receipt I saw before. Heh. A soft chuckle pulled me back to reality, and I looked up. "Sophia, do you even have a heart? You're so careful with a sofa, but I've been sitting here for ages, and you haven't given me a single glance." I blinked my eyes. "I'm looking at you now." Under my gaze, Ethan's face visibly flushed. Cough, cough. "Just tell me directly, are you going to take responsibility for me or not?" Hearing him ask, my heart pounded, but I instantly composed myself. "I'm sorry, Ethan, I'm a nobody. Please just let me go." Seeing the disappointment in Ethan's eyes, my heart softened slightly. But thinking of the impossible future, I still hardened my heart. "Ethan, if there's nothing else, I'll be going now." The next morning at the company, following Ethan's usual requirements, I selected a young man from a thick stack of resumes. He was a smart and promising young man, 2 years out of college, who understood workplace needs without being overly slick or trying to guess his boss's thoughts. "Hi, Sophia, I'm Leo, here to apply for the assistant position." The young man wore a white shirt, his smile fresh and clean. For me, who had been in the workplace for a long time and was used to seeing greasy old men, he was like a breath of fresh air. Cough, cough, Leo, come, let me tell you something. I handed Leo the notebook where F. Anne's preferences were recorded, treating it like a sacred inheritance. Seeing the dense notes inside, Leo immediately turned pale, asking a flurry of questions with a desperate look. His reaction reminded me of when I first started working. Facing such a difficult boss, it was indeed natural to feel nervous and uneasy. "Leo, you'll handle the information gathering for this urban development plan." As I was giving instructions to Leo, Ethan's voice came from behind me. "Sophia, come to my office for a moment." I was completely baffled. "No, change it." Seeing my bewildered expression, he directly stated, "I don't want a male assistant. Hire a female. But I've already screened them. Leo is the most suitable candidate so far. If we restart the selection, I might not be able to finalize it before I leave." A cold smirk appeared on Ethan's lips. "Is it really that you can't find anyone, or are you just reluctant to let him go?" Hearing that, I was speechless. As if he understood my expression, he propped one hand against the door, trapping me inside. "Actually, so far, I'm still most satisfied with you, Sophia. Don't you love money? Can 3 times your salary convince you to stay?" I could hear the seriousness in Ethan's tone, but I was still flustered. "Ethan, can you please not be so gentle? I'm used to you yelling at me. When you're suddenly like this, I get scared." In an instant, Ethan withdrew all tenderness, as if forcefully suppressing something. His tone was colder than ever. "Get out." I let out a sigh of relief and scrambled out. By 5 in the afternoon, the heavens seemed to have sprung a leak, pouring down heavy rain. The secretarial team colleagues exited the elevator together. Leo smiled at me. "Sophia, it's raining. I've already called a cab. Do you want a ride?" Looking at the stormy weather outside and then at Leo, whose smile hadn't faded. Even I, with my thick skin, felt a rare touch of embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Leo, I'm not really sure what En's thinking." Leo's tone was very open-minded. "It's okay, Sophia. When looking for a job, you always have to be selective. Sophia, please don't delete my text message. Can we still be friends in the future?" I nodded, laughing. Of course. I thought hiring someone would be an easy task. But it had been almost a month, and still, no one had been able to stay. I had long since lost my initial enthusiasm. However, I could probably understand Ethan's little scheme. He was likely trying to stall me by making it difficult to hire a replacement. Seeing me slumped with my chin in my hand, Ms. Rebecca from HR patted my shoulder. "Sophia, don't worry. Your hope will arrive this afternoon." I leaned against the armrest, lacking interest. "What hope?" "I'm almost despairing." Ms. Rebecca looked excited. "Rest assured, a stunning beauty is coming for an interview this afternoon. With that face, Ethan is guaranteed to be impressed." My face clearly showed my disbelief. Which of the women interviewed this month wasn't beautiful? As soon as Ethan puts on that sour face and makes things difficult, don't they all run off in tears? My daily job now is to comfort those young women who come for interviews. I'm utterly exhausted. Ms. Rebecca looked absolutely confident, giving me a firm punch. "Don't you worry, just you wait and see." Sure enough, when I saw the new applicant in HR that afternoon, she was indeed extraordinary. She had a petite face with delicate features, smooth brown wavy hair, a figure-hugging suit that accentuated her figure, and what was most eye-catching was the limited edition Hermes bag she carried. Realizing her uniqueness, I didn't ask further questions. I simply asked a few casual questions, then took her to Ethan's office. But just as I opened the office door, Olivia rushed in like a gust of wind and hugged Ethan's arm. Tilting her face up, she smiled sweetly at him. "Ethan, honey, aren't you happy I'm coming to work for you?" Her sugary sweet voice was incredibly cloying and cutesy. Even I, a woman, could barely stand it. What surprised me most was that Ethan simply let her cling to his arm. He didn't push her away as he usually did. "Alright, stop acting spoiled here. We need to maintain professionalism in the company." Then he glanced at me and said, "She's hired. You teach her and transfer your duties to her." Okay. I couldn't quite pinpoint how I felt. It was a dull ache, almost like my prized cabbage had been snatched by another pig. Suppressing the discomfort in my heart, I didn't want to say more. "Ethan, honey, can I sit in this spot?" I want to be closer to you. I watched her point at my desk, and I didn't object. Instead, Ethan hesitated, glancing at me a few times. Thank you for your hard work, Sophia. Mentally, I was cursing, but I kept a smile on my face. It's all right. I'll be moving out in a few days anyway. Hearing my reply, Ethan was silent for a moment. I led Olivia to the desk, cleared my belongings from the seat, and let her take it. Olivia stood by, watching me pack, then whispered excitedly, Sophia, are you curious about the relationship between Ethan, honey, and me? I looked up at her, seeing undisguised eagerness in her eyes. Lowering my gaze, I remained calm. I don't want to know. Damn it. Of course, I was curious. I was dying of curiosity. Fortunately, Olivia didn't disappoint me and began talking to herself. Well, Ethan, honey, and I grew up together. We're childhood sweethearts. After speaking, she giggled incessantly, rather cloyingly. I remained outwardly calm after hearing her, but inwardly my thoughts were in turmoil. Honestly, a man with no integrity is like spoiled goods. He's a real piece of work, and now childhood sweethearts? Who would want a man like that? He has no integrity or loyalty. No matter how much I complained internally, I didn't stop the handover work. After lunch, I had just settled into my new workstation. The internal phone rang. Come over. I walk Ed into the office, and surprisingly, besides Ethan, Olivia was also standing there. A pitiful expression was on her face. Did you even teach her properly? How dare you show me something like this directly? I know you're leaving soon, but your work isn't something you can just gloss over. I glanced at the document Ethan had thrown on the desk. Wasn't this the information I had asked Olivia to prepare? I had told her to send it to me for review after she finished, but I hadn't received it. It turned out she had given it directly to Ethan. Seeing furrowed brow, I didn't waste words. I didn't do it. Just as I finished speaking, Olivia's tears began to fall. Ethan, honey, please don't be angry. I'm scared. Sophia asked me to do this document, but I really don't remember her telling me to send it to her for review. It's all my fault, boo-hoo. I rolled my eyes so hard they almost popped out. I hadn't even voiced my grievance, and she was already playing the victim. Ethan, that manipulative old man, immediately softened his expression and said to me, Olivia just joined the company, you need to be more understanding. You should remind her a few more times. I felt an indescribable sense of grievance coiled within me, with no outlet for release. I fiercely kept my tears locked in my eyes, lowering my head, not daring to reveal a single bit. In my memory, for the past 6 years, Ethan had always strictly separated business from personal matters. Even when I was ostracized by senior employees, he would do his utmost to get justice for me. But his indulgence and protection of Olivia today made me feel as if I were meeting him for the first time. Okay. Hearing my response, Ethan was silent for quite some time. You two go back to work for now. I composed myself, only able to self-console. I'd be free in a few days. What was a little grievance compared to that? It wouldn't have anything to do with me anymore. To train Olivia, I gave her the company's year-end team bill. Ding event plan. Perhaps because colleagues had noticed her unusual relationship with Ethan, they constantly gathered around her in small groups, showering her with compliments. Secretary is truly generous. Is this team-building event really an Azure resort? Olivia sat on the sofa, looking smug. Of course. Ethan, honey, has already approved the plan I made. That's great. We finally get to enjoy ourselves, unlike with Sophia before, who always made us climb this mountain or that mountain, as if she was terrified we'd spend one extra penny of the company's money. Hearing this, Olivia smiled faintly and said, all right, everyone, let's not talk about Sophia anymore. Maybe she just wanted to save money. I'll treat everyone to seafood after work, how about that? The colleagues standing around cheered. The humiliation in my heart was almost unbearable. I could only quietly slip away through a side door. Actually, I also wanted to make a more luxurious plan for previous team-building events. But every time I submitted one after finishing it, Ethan would always reject it outright. Perhaps because the person handling it was different, he directly approved Olivia's plan? Ding. I picked up my phone and glanced at it. It was a text message from Leo. Although hadn't been hired last time, he had been privately contacting me ever since. I could probably confirm that he was somewhat interested in me. Looking at the dinner invitation on my phone, I hesitated for a moment but decided to accept. However, it wasn't to reciprocate his feelings, but to sever an impossible connection. As I waited for the elevator, a shadow appeared beside me. I turned my head to look. It was Ethan. Done for the day? Thinking of what he had done recently, I didn't even want to talk to him. do you have time tonight? That restaurant you like has a new set menu. I lowered my head and rolled my eyes, not daring to let him see. No thanks, I'll just grab something quick at home. The tea evening, I arrived at the restaurant where I was meeting Leo. As I entered, I paused for a moment. Wasn't this the Michelin-starred Western restaurant Ethan used to take me to? Oh God, could this one meal bankrupt me? Outwardly, some women appear calm, but inwardly, they're secretly calculating the cost. Ethan, how long are you going to keep stalling? You're 28, not going on blind dates, not getting married. When will I ever get to hold a grandchild? Just as I was lost in thought, I heard a familiar woman's voice. I looked up, and my eyes met Ethan's. Sitting opposite him was Mrs. Eleanor, and Olivia was gently comforting Mrs. Eleanor, holding her arm. Auntie, please calm down. Ethan, honey, certainly doesn't want to avoid marriage, he probably just hasn't met the right person yet. Mrs. Eleanor's voice suddenly rose. What do you mean, the right person? I think you, Olivia, are the right person. You're beautiful, educated abroad, and our families are perfectly matched. You're simply impeccable. Ethan frowned and looked at them. Less talk, more eating. Hearing's reprimand, Olivia's cooing voice was incredibly sweet. Ethan, honey, I'm just trying to help you. Why are you being so fierce? Mrs. Eleanor couldn't help but interject. Ethan, Olivia is a young lady who became an assistant for you, and you're still not treating her better? Enough. Ethan stood up impatiently. If you like her so much, she can be your daughter from now on. Don't bother me with this. He stormed towards the door, glancing at Leo and me as he passed. Leo and I had witnessed the entire scene, and an awkward feeling spread between us. Sophia? Hearing's voice, I snapped back to reality. Should we find somewhere else to eat? Hearing that, I immediately grabbed my bag. I certainly didn't want to deal with Mrs. Eleanor, that difficult person. That night, back home, I showered and got into bed early. But my mind was racing with thoughts, and I had no desire to sleep. Thinkin' about meeting Ethan today. It seemed his relationship with Olivia wasn't all that great. And then I thought about that night. I got up, grabbed a can of beer, and planned to watch a movie. Just as I was neatly arranging the takeout snacks from the fridge on the coffee table, there was a knock at the door. I opened the door and froze instantly. Ethan stood outside, his eyes red. Seeing my silence, he reached out and pulled me into his arms without a word. His head was buried in the crook of my neck. This moment felt like a dream. However, the bursts of warmth on my neck made me realize it was real. I suddenly felt an impulse, wanting to stop overthinking everything and simply admit, I really wanted to sleep with him. But rationality pulled me back. I reached out and pushed him away, stammering a greeting. Ethan, have you eaten? Ethan chuckled softly, looking at my slightly flushed face. Didn't you see if I'd eaten? So, did you and Leo have a nice meal? Suddenly, I could almost smell a strong sour scent at my nose. I played dumb. Hey, then I'll treat you to some late-night food. I didn't eat enough either. He paused for a moment, then grinned. Good that you didn't eat enough. As time passed, it was suddenly my last week at the company. And this weekend happened to be the team-building event. I had originally thought that since I was leaving soon, I shouldn't take advantage of company perks. But my colleagues from the secretarial department, with whom I had a good relationship, came to persuade me. Sophia, it's not like Miss Sarah is telling you what to do. But since you're leaving soon anyway, and it's a rare chance for a team-building event at Azure Resort, might as well enjoy it since it's free. Listening to Miss Sarah, I felt she had a point. Is a corporate drone still a corporate drone if they don't take advantage of company perks? The company truly splurged on this team-building event. They booked an entire villa complex by the sea, facing the ocean. The scenery was absolutely stunning. After entering my room, I immediately changed into my swimsuit, put on a cover-up, and wanted to head out. Just as I reached the main entrance, I heard Chloe's loud voice. Colleagues, secretary suggests we all go to the beach and form a beach volleyball team. Ms. Liu saw me approaching and immediately reached out to pull me. I quickly refused aloud, but without realizing it, the cover-up draped over me slipped off. Ethan glanced at me, and seeing this, quickly turned his body to shield me. I picked up the fallen cover-up and rushed back to my room, feeling speechless. It wasn't like I wasn't wearing anything. I had even specifically chosen the most conservative one-piece swimsuit. Was it really necessary? Not wanting to see Olivia showing off again, nor wanting to clash with her before I left, I made an excuse about feeling unwell and stayed in my room. That evening, Ethan came knocking on my room door, holding a glass of milk. Looking at him, wearing only a white bathrobe, revealing his chest and abdominal muscles, Even though I was internally scoffing that he was probably trying to seduce me, I still had to pretend to be indifferent. Why are you here? I pulled back my gaze, which was practically trailing. They all went out to have fun, and no one brought me along. Sophia, can you take me in for the night? Ethan put on a pitiful, wronged expression. I knew perfectly well that he was probably a big bad wolf. No, I'm sleepy and going to bed. Without waiting for his reaction, I waved my hand, intending to close the door, but was quick, jamming his foot directly into the doorframe. Stop fooling around, I have something important to discuss. I stopped pretending, giving him a massive roll of my eyes. What important business? The business of wanting to sleep with me? As soon as I said that, I knew I had messed up, hating myself so much I almost slapped my own face. But, across from me, seemed somewhat excited. The desire in his eyes no longer hidden, I saw it clearly. Yes. Hearing him admit it personally, I was indeed a little shocked. In my mind, Ethan had always been out of my league. He also never allowed himself to be at a disadvantage when interacting with others. Perhaps the expression on my face was too shocked, so Ethan had to explain. Sophia, I was scared. Do you know how I felt when I saw you with Leo? I was afraid if I didn't speak up, you would be lost to me forever. His jealous expression made my heart flutter. It turns out love can truly make someone shed their usual self. Even someone so proud could, for the one they loved, voice words they would normally never deign to say. But I was scared too. The gap between us wasn't just a crack that could be crossed, it was a chasm. I deliberately put on an exasperated expression. All right, Ethan, stop joking around. I'm really tired. As I closed the door, I felt as though I could see profound sadness in his eyes. Hiding alone under the covers, I didn't even notice the tears streaming down my face. All the courage I had tried to muster for him completely dissipated at that very moment. Having witnessed my parents' failed marriage firsthand since childhood, I truly lacked the courage to try. I yearned for love, yet dreaded it. Exhausted from crying, I simply fell asleep. I don't know how many hours passed before I suddenly heard a commotion outside my door. I jolted awake and opened the door to see what was happening. Where's Ethan? Has anyone seen Ethan? Many people had gathered in the villa's main hall, chattering amongst themselves. A young boy said, I saw Ethan alone by the sea around 9 p.m. No way, another replied. I just went to the beach too and didn't see Ethan. Recalling Ska's from earlier that night, I felt as though my world was crumbling. The bitterness in my heart threatened to force tears from my eyes. Ignoring the noisy crowd, I ran barefoot straight out the door and towards the beach. My colleagues behind me were still shouting, Sophia, Sophia, there's a downpour coming, the beach is dangerous, come back. I heard their voices, but I didn't want to turn back. At that moment, I only wanted to find Ethan, bring him back, and then tell him that even if it meant getting hurt, I would accept it. A fine, persistent rain soaked my clothes as I searched along the beach, but I still found nothing. Round and round, again and again. Finally, completely exhausted, I collapsed onto the sand, letting the rain drench me. The pitch-black sea bore no resemblance to its calm daytime self, every towering wave portended danger. In that moment, I thought, if he truly was in the sea, I would have the courage to join him. Sophia, Sophia. I felt as though I was hallucinating, wanting to turn and look, but I didn't have an ounce of strength. Until a warm embrace lifted me up. Are you crazy? Do you know what kind of weather this is? Running towards the beach. Nestled in Ethan's arms, a wave of relief washed over me. I touched his face. It was warm. Not wanting to hear him lecture any further, I wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed him. Back at the villa, everyone dispersed once they saw we were all right. Ethan carried me directly to his room. Sophia, have you made up your mind? His forehead rested against mine, and I could feel my face burning. As if dissatisfied with my silence, his eyes stared directly into mine. His gaze was irritating me. Why so many words? Not wanting to overthink it anymore, I flipped over to pin him down, silencing those lips that always made me blush. His eyes were as deep as the ocean. I love you.